Hi, I'm Amanda.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth.
Hi, I'm Megan.
Hi, I'm Olivia.
For our Ethics in the News presentation, we're going to be talking about Sia's movie music. So, Sia is known as an Australian singer, songwriter, and more recently a director. She's well known for shunning publicity, oftentimes wearing her hair long and in front of her face to avoid people seeing her real identity and scrutinizing her. She's hardly seen out in public, and at award shows, she usually has her hair covering her face. It's kind of become her aesthetic and identity as a celebrity through the years. Sia has a controversial past, with many of her songs and projects depicting addiction and mental disorders. She's controversial for a lot of her music videos in the past that star Maddie Ziegler. An example would be her music video Elastic Heart, where Maddie Ziegler, who was a minor at the time, was dancing in an animalistic style and inappropriately in a cage with the grown man Shia LaBeouf. So we wanted to share the trailer for Sia's most recent project, the film Music, that came out in February because it's been the subject for a lot of ethical criticism. The film has a lot of well-known actors: Kate Hudson, Leslie Odom Jr., and Maddie Ziegler. Maddie Ziegler was cast to play the main character, Music, who is a girl that is on the autistic spectrum. Maddie's casted as the star in almost all of Sia's projects, and the autistic community and allies of the autistic community were angered by the misinterpretation of autism in the film. As you'll see in the trailer, they use exaggerated mannerisms, elaborate flashing lights, and chaotic music. Ziegler herself is not on the spectrum, and many people were angered by the misinterpretation and felt that for somebody who claimed to love and appreciate the autistic community, that the film just really missed the mark.
My neighbor's passed out on the floor, and I can't feel her pulse.
Does the little girl have any family members we can contact?
Family members?
I can hardly take care of myself.
Come on, this is your responsibility. Grow up.
Hey, music? I'm your sister. All she's got now is you.
Hi there.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Music, it's your friend Ebo. I live next door.
Can you move in?
She can understand everything you are saying to her. And if you are happy, press this.
I am sad.
Very funny, troublemaker. She sees the world in a completely different way from us.
We're about to have a pool party.
I am happy.
You can do this.
I'm gonna help her just like she helps me. And I'm actually learning how to love because I love her.
So the biggest argument that people made about the ethical issues in the film was the sense of ableism. Ableism is discrimination and social prejudice against people with disabilities and or people who are perceived to be disabled. Many people challenge the concept of ableism in films like Music, because they say that acting is acting and that acting like a person who's disabled isn't unethical. But the reality is that the misinterpretation in the film community does perpetuate ableism. And this is something that keeps happening because oftentimes well known actors and actresses are needed to increase the numbers of viewers and fans of a film. There's a very small number of disabled or neurodivergent people who would fit that bill. So, this is likely why Sia chose Maddie Ziegler, who is very well known and has a big public fan base, to play the main character.
In an article by Teen Vogue, Sia admits that Maddie said she didn't want anybody to think she was making fun of them, to which Sia boldly stated that she wouldn't let that happen. The article states that some autistic people wrote on social media that Maddie's portrayal reminded them of being mocked by others for their disability. Sia utilized her power, which stems from her age and status over Maddie, to convince her that this role would not be seen as offensive. The power dynamic between Sia and Maddie is unethical. Sia is in the position of power to take care of Maddie, also known as a prima facie duty of non-injury. She disregarded this duty and ultimately caused harm to Maddie's image as an actress. Actors have long garnered awards for such portrayals, with actors like Eddie Redmayne from The Theory of Everything, Dustin Hoffman from Rain Man, and Daniel Day-Lewis from My Left Foot winning Oscars. Dozens of actors have been nominated for playing disabled people over the years, and yet only 2 disabled people have won acting Oscars. 95% of disabled roles are played by non-disabled actors. Sia's film was nominated for Best Motion Picture and Best Actress for the 78th Golden Globe Awards. These nominations take away the opportunity for disabled actors to win a distinguished award such as a Golden Globe. It can be seen as unethical that the Golden Globe Awards nominated this film because it further spreads the message that ableism is okay and non-disabled actors and actresses should be awarded for inaccurate depictions of individuals that they do not even relate to.
So this video shows a UK talk show discussing multiple opinions on whether or not Sia should be cancelled for her film.
Sia has been slammed for casting a non-autistic actor to play a girl with autism in her film Music. 18-year-old Maddie Ziegler, who's performed in a lot of her film clips before and has worked closely with Sia for several years, scored the lead role, but Sia has since defended her choice after uproar from the autistic community.
To be fair, Sia's also attacked a lot of people from the autistic community on Twitter. Joe Abbey and Tim Blackwell are here to discuss this. Joe, you wrote the article on this, so I'll go to you first because you say you are uncomfortable with the criticism of Sia's choice of casting Maddie. Just speak to us about that.
So I have 2 boys with autism, so I sort of feel like I'm pretty entrenched in the community, and I saw all of the debate going back and forth. And I understand when it comes to making sure there's inclusion in, you know, the so-called real world, when it comes to workplaces and schooling, etc. But I don't know, when it comes to art and movies and music and creating something from scratch and having Sia be the creator and wanting to express it in the way she chooses with someone she's worked with for years and years, I feel she should have that right. And also the autistic community is attacking this movie based on a trailer. It hasn't come out yet. It comes out next year. I think the best way to protest something if you don't agree with it is to not go and see it, not to protest the very making of it.
I guess a lot of people are saying, you know, people like Dustin Hoffman in Rain Man and Jim Parsons in Big Bang Theory, they are non-autistic people who have played the roles of autistic actors, autistic characters.
Sandra Bullock's also not an astronaut. Like this is creativity, this is art, and surely putting something like this on a stage, a public stage, is actually the important thing. Sia doesn't have to make it. Like, shouldn't we be encouraging people to be making stories and telling stories? And if she wants to work with someone you know, like, how nice is it to do something with someone you know and someone you trust? I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I hate the fact that, you know, 10 people on Twitter have to try and tear things down. It's the cancel culture is actually ridiculous. That's the actual issue here.
I'm going to go against all of that with respect to your article. I actually think your point of view is actually really warranted because you do have skin in the game. I'm going to go from the artistic point of view, from the art point of view. I think what we're hearing now, you know, Rain Man was 25 years ago. Jim Parsons doing Big Bang Theory, that's 10, 15 years ago as well.
Doctor, Atypical, they're current.
But more and more now we're hearing from communities like the autistic community, from the trans community. They're saying what we want, not necessarily to take those roles, but to have a say in how they're being interpreted on the screen.
How they're represented.
Because before we did Rain Man, none of us had really heard about
the Hugh Sheridan story, right, with the trans community. Shouldn't have that happened in the audition process?
Yes.
He got the job, let him do the job, and let the show go on. You've now ruined a man's opportunity to do something with his role, with his art. I think that's the crime there.
I don't think that's necessarily the case, and there's a lot going on with that as well. But to keep it on this one, I kind of hear that when you're mugging it for the camera to play an autistic someone with autism. I feel like those days are gone. You know, and I feel like that the artistic community needs to step up and listen more. Whether it's you, whether it's Sia, whether it's Maddie Ziegler, it's now time for us to listen to those marginalized voices that we're representing and making millions out of.
I just don't understand the arguments. They're saying it's not a realistic interpretation of autism. Well, it's a movie. They're singing and dancing in colour. And also there really isn't a realistic interpretation of autism. It's so different in every person. So her interpretation of it isn't reflective of anything except that interpretation of it.
From the artistic point of view to actually go,
So
how do I make it more like
make documentaries, make your own movies, do what you need to do. But I think having a story out there, having conversations like this without cancellation coming into it are more important than
at least bring the relevant voices to the table.
Well,
right?
the arguments
and to be
and it's not even just about the movie. They've argued about how Maddie Ziegler trained. They're upset they consulted with Autism Speaks because some people have issues. But there's people.
That's a very complicated.
But there's people within the autism community who have autism who love this movie as well, who are too scared to voice their opinions because everyone's so upset about it. And that's the part where I start to say, hey, we need to be able to respectfully disagree because our lives and experiences with autism are so varied and different.
And also the word is acting. It's acting.
It's acting. It really is acting. If you don't like it, try and see the movie.
Well, have a look at 9honey.com for Joe's article because it's really interesting insight.
The pillars of character in the situation are respect, fairness, and responsibility. All of these correspond to the autistic community. Responsibility falls on Sia and her team when telling the story and accurately depicting autism. Sia also is obligated to show respect to the community and fairness to those involved in the film, such as Maddie Ziegler and the cast. These three pillars were not upheld in the film music. Some of the major prima facie duties include fidelity, justice, beneficence, and non-injury. These aspects all relate directly to the autistic community, representation, and accurate representation at that. Fidelity relates to the idea that Sia was not honorable or truthful in the way the film was cast and the actors involved were portrayed. Justice was broken in the film relating specifically to the focus of the film being on the autistic community. The film has many harsh elements such as bright colors and light flashes that can negatively impact members of the autistic community that have epilepsy. Beneficence was ignored almost entirely, even though Sia stated that the film was meant to benefit the autistic community that she cares about deeply. Non-injury is one prima facie duty that is particularly important in the depiction of the autistic community and education of the public about it. By inaccurately portraying those in the community and even using offensive stereotypes, this prima facie duty was ignored and therefore caused injury. Some examples of the ethical implications include the golden mean, free rider, and utilitarianism. The most relevant being free rider due to the inaccurate depiction of the community and inaccurate depiction of those with disabilities in the film industry. Even though many neurodivergent roles have been filled by actors who are not neurodivergent, the roles have not come off as offensive. Due to the lack of research, Sia's movie music did. The golden mean is exemplified as well through the lack of research and again, poor depiction of those with autism. The depiction was highly stereotypical and offensive in some scenes, such as the restraint scene.
The moral claimants in music are Sia. Sia has an obligation to accurately portray the autistic community in her film and to express her art in a way that will be beneficial to the community. Sia's team has an obligation to Sia to ensure that the necessary research is done to ensure that the film is successful and looks good for everyone involved. The cast of music has an obligation to Sia and her team to bring the vision to life, but they also have an obligation to depict their roles fairly. Everyone involved has an obligation to the autistic community because they are touching on issues that are sensitive and very real for the community. Inaccurate representation of them is negatively affecting this moral claimant. The community of people of color were also moral claimants in this movie because the actor Leslie Odom Jr.'s character was portrayed in a more negative light, and this was damaging to the portrayal.
There was a backlash over the way Sia was speaking to criticism, especially those coming from autistic people. In total, her replies to people over 40 times, dismissing tweets as what she called bullshit and saying that people hadn't seen the whole film. One example came when one user, Helena Z, suggested that there could have been greater effort to include autistic actors, where Sia responded, "Maybe you're just a bad actor." Social media was flooded with those expressing their anger and concern over Sia's casting of Maddie. One of those people was Paige Leo, an autistic 20-year-old on TikTok who uses her platform to frequently speak up about issues within the ASD community and to attempt to educate those outside of it. Paige posted a video addressing the entire controversy, and she agreed Sia should have hired an autistic actor.
Like, tell us more. And Sia released that she did, in fact, hire an autistic actor to play the main character of Music, but then had to fire her because she was too stressed in that environment. And I think that she thought people would think that that was the nice thing to do, to be like, oh, you're not having a good time, just leave. When in fact, what Sia should be promoting is accommodating autistic people. Otherwise, what are you doing? You're bringing autistic people in and they say, I can't work in this work environment. So you go, see ya.
Petition to ban Sia's film music reached over 10,000 signatures. Described the pop star's directorial debut as work that severely discriminates and contributes to harmful stereotypes of autistic people.
The film perpetuates stereotypes of how neurotypical individuals believe that autistic individuals act. Maddie overly relies on stims and movement in a way that is deemed extremely offensive by the autistic community. Nina Skov Jensen, a member of the autistic community, created a petition urging for the Golden Globes to revoke the nominations for Sia's movie Music. She states in her petition that the music segments are filled with strobing lights, bright colors, loud sounds, and quick camera movements. About 1 in 4 autistic individuals have epilepsy, which can result in seizures from the film's overstimulation. The fact that the film is filled with scenes that are overstimulating to the autistic community further demonstrates Sia's lack of research and compassion for the people that she was basing her film on. It also stems back to her lack of care for the prima facie duty of non-injury. Her film is not only disturbing to the mental health of viewers, but it can cause damage to physical health as well.
Sia's defense of the film came about only after it was nominated for 2 Golden Globes. You can see she states that her intentions were awesome, even though the community was inaccurately and offensively depicted, causing injury and a further misunderstanding of autism. Due to the colors and flashing lights, warnings needed to be added to the beginning of the film. Sia also spoke on the fact that she was going to remove the restraint scene from future editions of the film because it was offensive and harmful for the autistic community's depiction.
At the end, she gave a simple and short apology for the film's representation of autism, and then promptly decided to delete her Twitter account.
This ET clip shows Sia discussing her defense of the movie.
Sia's responding to a backlash she is getting after the teaser was released for a film she directed called Music. Sia cast her muse, Maddie Ziegler, as someone on the autism spectrum. The autism community is slamming her for not casting someone who actually has autism.
Yeah, in a series of replies to criticism, Sia wrote, I actually tried working with a beautiful young girl, nonverbal, on the spectrum, and she found it unpleasant and stressful, so that's why I cast Maddie. I hired plenty of special abilities kids. I'm willing to be misunderstood because I think this movie does more good than harm. I'm so sad and confused that you think I didn't research and utilize my friends on the spectrum. So many assumptions. Hope you love the film. It's beautiful. I had 2 people on the spectrum advising me at all times. Grr, F the F. Why don't you watch my film before you judge it? Fury.
And then she threw some shade at one individual who tweeted, several autistic actors, myself included, responded to these tweets. We all said we could have acted in it on short notice. These excuses are just that, excuses. The fact of the matter is zero effort was made to include anyone who is actually autistic. Sia replied, maybe you're just a bad actor.
Yeah. So here's the teaser, and Sia speaking to Variety about the film in an interview that happened before all this backlash.
She can understand everything you are saying to her. And if you are happy, press this one.
I'm sad.
Very funny, troublemaker. She sees the world in a completely different way from us.
Music? We're about to have a pool party. I am happy.
Hey.
So she plays a special needs child who
someone on the autism spectrum who's quite low functioning, but she's non-verbal. She has a little echolalia, which means that she can repeat what you say to her, but she doesn't generate her own language.
I'm glad you explained that because it wasn't entirely clear what the prognosis was. Yeah.
Maybe it was because I was scared. Maybe it's because I was scared that if I made it clear what her diagnosis was, that then I might offend somebody. But then I learned that there is no two people on the spectrum that are the same, that autism comes in absolutely every shade. And that when we sent it off to the Child Mind Institute to see whether we'd done a good representation, Maddie scored 100%.
Wow.
And both of us cried on that day. It's a love letter. I don't know why, but I've always had a thing for special, and they're called special abilities now, not special needs. People with special abilities, and also for the caregivers of those people. I want compassion, really. I want people to show compassion every day.
Okay, so lots of comments already about this. So Paula says, I think Paula's saying at least she tried to hire an actor on the spectrum. Dustin Hoffman was just acting at Rain Man. Yeah, JJ mentions Dustin Hoffman too, that he won an Oscar for Rain Man. So Skippy says, damn, Sia's going in on people, but it is her movie dedicated to her friends, so she might be past the overly PC backlash. Garcia says, I think it's disrespectful to people with autism. Yazzie says she should have had a publicist respond on Twitter. It's okay to be quiet and let the people you hire speak in an appropriate way. Adrian says this just makes Sia sound tone deaf. Tang says, yes, Sia is horrible. But yeah, lots of comments. Because we've had this conversation several times over the past year. Like just last month, we had about Penelope Cruz playing a Colombian in, I forget the movie, what it's called, with Jessica Chastain. We talked about with Halle Berry was going to take on a transgender role. So we've had these conversations a few times over the past few years. So it's always a gray zone. But yeah, what are your thoughts?
It's a gray zone. That's exactly what it is. What do you do at a point where she says that, yeah, I tried to hire this for the role, it didn't work out. I almost like she has to prove that now. She has to say, this is the person we were trying to have for the film. Maybe that's what she needs to do. But I do have mixed emotion. I mean, we're trying to make a change in the industry where, if it's a Black character, it should be played by a Black character, or to, someone who is autistic should be played by someone who is actually autistic. And these are the changes we're trying to make so everyone has a voice. But she made the effort in this case, and she felt that Maddie was the right person, and it looks like she's done an amazing job in her performance. But yeah, I have mixed emotions about this. I think if it's for change, she should have hired someone that was autistic, and I think she should have worked harder to find that right person. But at the same time, you create a movie that's going to speak on so many levels that you're putting out a story about someone who is autistic. So I don't know. This is a tough situation.
Yeah, I don't think Twitter is the right form to have any kind of discourse. So I don't think Sia should have been replying to people just one-on-one with those kind of replies. And yeah, she says she hired someone who's on the spectrum. It didn't work out. She probably should have worked harder to get someone, to just get Maddie, who she's worked with a bunch of times. Maddie's kind of her go-to person to go to, so I don't want to think the element of, it's just too hard to find someone, so we just went with Maddie instead. But yeah, once again, with people, and the autistic community has every right to, have their feelings about it. I do think they should wait to see the movie. I think it's very hard we just showed the teaser. That's what they're judging it off of. And Sia says, there are people on the spectrum that are in this movie. It's dedicated to her friend. they had consultants on the set the whole time. But yeah, like you said, at the same time, yeah, we need more representation out there. So where do you draw the line? But once again, where do you draw the line? Then where is an actor allowed to go? What are they allowed to play? But once again, this is a great conversation to have, and it's getting people talking about it. So Sia, wanted to do this as a love letter, and it's not just going to be a love letter. It's going to create a conversation. So I think in a way, it's good that it's creating that conversation. But yeah, it's a tough one because you don't want to put actors into boxes where they're only allowed to play what they know. There has to be, they have to be able to go outside that box. But yeah, at the same time, we've talked about that we need more representation. And so yeah, I do think it's harder to get someone in that lead role that was on the spectrum. But I think the same thing, like she says, like how, there's no two people at the same point on the spectrum. So it could have been, she could have gotten someone who's on the spectrum, and then people could have complained, oh, why not get someone who's on that end of the spectrum? So there would have been complaints no matter what.
What was that movie with Jacob Tremblay? That was Wonder, I think it was.
The one with Julia Roberts, where Julia Roberts is his mom.
With Julia Roberts, yeah. Like I think back to that movie as well, and it was a brilliant film, and he acted so well in it. But this is a tough situation. I think as we continue to grow and more acknowledgement, like these conversations, like you said, the community is speaking up and saying, "Hey, you should have this person taken on the role." I agree. I think ultimately that's what you want. You want that role to be taken by the person who is in that position of whatever it is. But sometimes we're getting to that point. I think it takes a journey to get to that point of finding the right person for whatever the character is. So, I think I'm looking forward to seeing the movie, and I think, I'm going to learn from it too, because she said she put a lot of work into this. It's a story that's important to her, and she wants to put it out there. So, I think everyone should give her a chance and watch the film.
Yeah, because it's not like she's ill-informed about this. Like she researched this for 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, she had consultants on. One of her best friends is on the spectrum. So you can't say that, Sia is just ill-informed about this whole issue. Like she's really trying to do something here. So let's give her, a bit of a chance instead of just slamming her on Twitter. Skippy says, you're never going to please everyone. Deborah says, I think they're being too hard on Sia. She should be thanked for at least showing what autism is. Awareness is the first step. So yeah, we'll see how the movie turns out. It's supposed to come out next year.
So for our discussion post, we want to hear your opinions on the representation concerns in the movie. And we also would like you to find an example of a film where a neurotypical actor plays a neurodivergent role. And these questions will be posted on Blackboard. Thank you.